Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ATI podcast. We're in here for episode 136. Barrett back with you. And our very special guest this week is going to be the amazing band from the UK, OVERSIZE. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Yeah, very good, man. Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, sweet. How you doing?
Doing great, man. So happy to have you. Taz, I know that we've been kind of internet pen pals off and on, commenting on the music for the last couple of years, so this is going to be a real labor of love tonight talking to you gentlemen. And I've really loved everything you guys have done up till to date. So really looking forward to the new album. We're going to get deep into that today as well.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we've been chatting for a minute, I think, since like the EP stuff. So it's nice that we could get around to this.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get things kicked off talking about what brought you guys to music in general. I'm always curious and fascinated to hear kind of that initial discovery, whether it was a band that drew you and thought, I want to be like them, or had a family member in your life that inspired you to pick up an instrument. What did that look like for you, Taz? I'll start with you.
Very musical family, really. My dad plays guitar, so there was always like guitars laying around the house. But I think the very first kind of like aha spark moment was like Guitar Hero 3. It was mainly because like everyone in the family, we had a bunch of cousins. I have like a big family. I've got like 5 siblings and we'd all play Guitar Hero, which I've touched on a few times before, but it's like, it had a really good range of stuff. Like, my favorite bands like Block Party, but Slayer as well. And that all kind of spawned from there, I'd say. And like those kind of musical tastes definitely kind of shifted to like what I ended up enjoying, like anything from like indie, like poppy stuff, even like, Fall of Troy's Mafia stuff, or like, thrash within Slayer. So that was my first. And I think there's a lot of people around my age who I think that happens to, but I don't really see that many people talking about it. But I'd say that was my big introduction to like a good range of music.
I love it. How about for you, Sam?
Kind of always been like creative, I guess, but I think it was like there literally was nothing to do where we grew up, and somehow kind of just slotted into a scene of like-minded people hanging out in the same spaces. And we basically just, from the get-go decided to form bands and watch each other's bands play. And actually some of the members, other than Taz, I've known for a very long time, and we kind of always bounced ideas off each other. And I think that's one side of it. And the other side is like my family are quite Christian. So I ended up going to church, and I was basically given one snare drum to hit every Sunday. I wasn't allowed a full kit because it was too loud. So I'd be there with this practice pad on top of this snare drum. Yeah, I soon lost interest in that. So
yeah, I could imagine. I could relate to the religious upbringing. I grew up in a very strict United Pentecostal household that followed all the apostolic doctrine and stuff, and quite the different lifestyle. Was very, very sheltered somewhat outside of going to public school. Kind of exposed me to a lot of stuff. What do you kind of feel like was kind of a breakout moment for you, maybe from that lifestyle?
I think, the same as you, kind of like public school, a bit rough and ready.
Yeah.
You get exposed to like some
Absolutely.
weird stuff.
To anything and everything, regardless of whether you want to or not.
Then you become rebellious, and then you're just an empty teenager.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. You did touch on this a moment ago, the fact that, you kind of played around and I guess met through the scene some of the other members of OVERSIZE. So let's talk about the formation of the band, how that came together. What did that look like?
Well, this is before Taz. This is 2019, I believe. Me, Shuttler, Sam Shuttler, the other Sam, Big Sam, as he's called, or referred
Big
to.
Sam, Little Sam.
Yeah. Big Sam and Lewis, the guitarist, we used to just meet up in Sam's little attic. He had an attic in his flat on like a hot summer's day with these little practice amps. We never really took it too seriously. We just kind of, I think we were fed up with our musical projects at the time in different capacities, and we just decided to start writing a few tracks. Sam is a prolific writer. Be all that he's the drummer, he can put a gnarly riff together. He can fill a SoundCloud literally full within like a matter of days. Like we run out of space all the time on like clouds and stuff.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. George was in my previous band. Again, he's someone I've known for like since I was a young teenager. I used to kind of BMX together as kids.
Nice.
Brought him in on bass because he's just a trustworthy guy. I hope. Sorry, George. And then it was kind of after we played a few shows, Taz came into the mix because you ultimately enjoyed the music, right?
They'd released like one song, and it was called Drive. And I take claim to fame that I think I was like the first Oversize fan. Pretty sure, like I was well into it. I didn't know any of the guys at all, but I was like posting about it on like forums and stuff, being like, "Is anyone fucking listening to this? Like, because this is sick."
It's awesome.
Like, no one was really doing like that style of stuff. It was mainly the people trying to sound like Title Fight, which is great. Love that band, but it was kind of a little bit different. It was a little bit kind of sounded a bit like Pixies. It was a little bit Smashing Pumpkins. It was a little bit different. So I was like shouting about that.
Yeah.
And a friend of Lou's, who was a mutual friend of mine, I think their guitarist was leaving, and then I think our mutual friend said, "You should hit this guy up. He'd be into this kind of music," because I used to play in like hardcore bands and things like that, and I was a drummer. And then Lou reached out and said like, "Oh, like, someone said to hit you up, see if you want to like join this project." And I was like, "Absolutely!" Like, I was already into it. And then it took me like a week to realize that they're actually looking for a guitarist and not a drummer. So I was like, "Oh, still up for it though." I play guitar, but I just never played guitar live or anything. And I was like, "Cool, let's go." And automatically they were like, "Cool, so the first EP is done." I was like, "Oh, sweet." Like, way ahead of it. And then it's like, "And we've just recorded the second EP." I'm like, "What?" So they released one song and they already had like 8 tracks, like recorded, mixed, mastered, banked. So they're already like, "Let's write some stuff for the album," even though, that's so far away. This was back in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, been discussing about that kind of stuff for a long time. But yeah, that was how I joined. And that's like how, far in advance those guys were working on this for, a long time before, to their credit. So yeah, I was happy just to step on board. But since those singles started coming out from the album, that's like the first stuff that I'd contributed to and played on. So that was quite refreshing to finally get some of those songs out. And
what I like hearing here is the fact that everybody has kind of a percussive element to their background, and that makes a lot of sense as a fan. Drums is my primary instrument. I can play all instruments as well, but I just noticed that you guys have a really good deep groove and pocket, and everybody's pretty locked in. And so that makes a lot of sense to me, even lyrically, Sam, how you approach stuff and fit in your phrasing. There's a percussiveness to that delivery that works really well that I think helps highlight, even in your early work, just how good you guys and locked in you are. So it's kind of interesting to hear that and have that validated, that you guys all have that percussive background.
Everyone starts off as a drummer.
Yeah, sure. Sure, it's the caveman move, right? Work out that aggression. You mentioned earlier that you're a big fan of Taz before you even joined the band. I would characterize some of that earlier work fitting maybe into like the Basement or the Title Fight type stuff, but there was always, I would say, a tinge of that, a bit of shoegaze, like early Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream era stuff. There was always a little bit of that raw alt-rock approach still yet there too. So big fan of the first EP, of course, In Balance. And then you guys progressed on. This is about the time that I discovered you, Into the Ceiling EP. Well, it came out in 2022. And again, I think some of those influences are there in some of those tracks, but I would say this is where you kind of started to develop, especially with a track like Taste. You could see stuff pop through like Failure. There's kind of that driving riff about 3/4 of the way through that song. I think this is where you guys are really starting to dial in your sound. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but just as a fan, that's kind of my observation.
Yeah, I think, it always takes a little while to kind of understand collectively, when there's 5 of you, to understand what sort of sounds you want to make. And I really didn't see us kind of going down the shoegazy kind of hole. That's not hole, but yeah.
Echo chamber, if you will, or yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
It was difficult for me when I joined because of, like you said, In Balance and Into the Ceiling, I think are very different pieces of work. So when I heard the second EP, I was like, wow, like neither of these are out yet, but they're very different. And so I was kind of in a headspace of like, what do I write for this band? How do I write for this band? And like, which direction do we go in? But I think what you said was pretty on point. We spoke about Taste a lot, the song, about how that could probably, if we re-recorded it, could get away with being on this record that we're about to release. It has that kind of like vibe and tone there.
Definitely.
And I think that was almost like the direction that the guys wanted to kind of explore when we were doing the album.
Now, is Dare to Move, that single that came out in 2023, is that the first time, Taz, that you had recorded with the band?
Yeah, we recorded the album back in June 2023 in Southampton with Lewis Johns and Kel Pinchin at the Ranch. And I think we just did 10 tracks, but we weren't signed. We put out the EPs with Church Road, but we were looking for like a label to like release an album. So we kind of just tested the waters with Dare to Move and put it out there just as we needed some new music out, and we wanted to try and like kind of start that process of being able to find like a label. And then we just, drip fed some other stuff and eventually got into the SHARPTONE stuff.
Well, Dare to Move, folks, if you've been following the ATI podcast, you know that back in 2023, that was one of our tracks of the week. That was one that I jammed pretty hard for a long time, I will say. And I was really excited to see what would come next. And of course, we know kind of what came next. But one thing I wanted to highlight while we're along the way here, even early on, you guys, I feel like have had a good vision for the band. It's rare that you find a band that has every aesthetic or piece of the band kind of locked in and figured out and knows exactly what they're going for. It's your eye for creative overall. But, even the video pieces or the photography or pictures that you guys would put out fits a very specific, it's like you're locked into your own genre, if you will. You guys know how to curate your own social media content, stuff like that. So I always find that fascinating when a band, especially a young band, a band that's, been around, I guess now for about 6 years, had that dialed in early. So I think that's something you guys are to be commended about as well.
Thanks, man.
Totally. There was a lot of that which drew me to them in the first place. The initial conversations I was having with Lou when I was joining, down to the video work they were doing with Harry Steele. I love Harry. I've known him for a long time and I've always been a big fan of his video work and his photography. So, things like that where it just felt right. They're working with the right people already. Tonally, artistically, they had it locked down. So it was kind of just like a continuation of that. And, I was really surprised when their guitarist was leaving. So I was like, do you not see? Like, I don't know. I was just kind of see from a mile away, this band, like, they know what's going on. Like, so, that was quite funny. Because I was sold off the bat. So sure. I appreciate you pointing that out because it was something that I definitely was like, you guys have got it locked. And it's
Absolutely.
Something part of. So.
Now, I think Salt came out before the actual announcement of your guys' relationship with SHARPTONE, if I remember correctly. That was released back in March of last year. So, of course, that you've got the Havenwood feature on there. Another incredible track for you guys, but you can see that through line creatively, that carryover from, started with, again, we kind of talked back with Taste even, but, Dare to Move certainly was a progression in that step and then and so on with Salt. So how did the Havenwood collab come together for you guys?
That's Taz, so you, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, I've I loved Teenage Wrist for the longest time. I used to like listen to them when I was in college when they put out their first tracks, and I've known Cam for a little while, and he ended up leaving Teenage Wrist and started doing his own thing. I can't really remember how we started talking. I think Cam when we released the first EP, someone put him onto it and he started talking about it. But we were already kind of in DMs at that point anyway on Insta. And we love his output. So I think I just messaged him. I was speaking to Lou about it and I was like, should we get him to do like a little backing vocal on the album where it's like, we won't have it as a feature, we won't have it as a guest spot, just like a couple of backing vocals. And it's kind of like, if you hear it and like you might pick up on it. It's meant to be like a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
And we in the track after it was done, and he was like, love it. Like, I would really love just to do a feature on this if you'd like let me. And we were like, yeah, like let's do a whole feature. Why not? So just, Sammy wrote the stuff. So it was quite, I guess, easy for him to kind of hop on. It was, Sammy wrote the lyrics and the melody and things like that. And so it was quite simple process in terms of Cam just kind of singing that part, and doing some harmonies and things like that. Super grateful for him to hop on that. I love Teenage Wrist a lot and I love the Heavenwood stuff. So it's definitely was like a cool full circle moment having, an artist that you've liked since a teenager, like featuring your record. So
Absolutely.
It's also worth mentioning, like, he has a really good ear for like new bands. And I think that's partly how he kind of, discovered us. I don't know whether it's like Reddit forums or, social media in whatever format. He just has, that's the one thing I know about the guy. He's just got a good ear.
I love it.
So I was stoked to have him, sing something that I'd written.
Yeah, and I love hearing your guys' voices together, Sam. Yours and Cam's. I think they They play well together, and that track was just a huge standout immediately. I was like, boy, these boys are cooking, and they're turning up the heat. Can't wait to see what was next. So, wasn't too many months after that, you guys had announced that you guys did sign with SHARPTONE. I believe I actually first saw, outside of your social media, of course, I think I first saw the Karain article announcing such. And so that's got to be really exciting for you guys, being some UK boys, getting some love in Karain, some coverage in Karain. That's got to be somewhat surreal now for you.
Yeah. I mean, when you grow up, you're always inspired to, especially over here, be in Karain or like have a feature. And so like when they come sniffing, you know, you must be doing something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So very great.
I bet. How did the SHARPTONE relationship start off for you guys?
He's just a social bee. Taz,
yeah,
do it, Taz, man. Do it.
Like, so,
Love it.
I don't know. I was working at a record label, and my boss at the time was super supportive of the band, and he runs his own little indie label, and he's a very good, I don't know how he's desk researcher, professional stalker, essentially.
Gotcha.
Find out people's contact and stuff. So we were talking with a bunch of labels at the time, you know, nothing like solid, as in nothing kind of tied down, but there was a lot of discussions, a lot of conversations. And then we got asked to do a tour with a band called Boston Manor, who are great guys, and we love that band as well. And my boss was like, who are Boston Manor signed to? And I was like, that label's way out of our kind of, you know, zone. And he was like, who is it? And I was like, they're SHARPTONE. And then my boss is just like, here's their A&R, send him the album. And I was like, what? And I was like, how do you find that? And he's just a really good way of just finding out the right people. And so I sent him the record, our A&R, Nathan, and this, you know, like half an hour or something. It was the same day. He was like, this record is incredible. Can you come and meet me? Like, when's good for you, kind of thing. And I was like, geez. And yeah, that relationship was great. It was super like natural. It didn't feel forced. You know, we hung out a bunch of times. He came and saw us at a bunch of shows, but it was very kind of natural. And he would give us like good, useful advice, just from a perspective of, you know, how to be a better band, really. And just totally, you know, nothing really in it for him, kind of thing. Even if the relationship wasn't going to happen with the label, he was just interested in us as an artist and as, you know, as an outfit. So we had some really good pointers, and it took us a while to actually discuss, like, you know, you're going to sign us. We didn't really have those conversations. It was just kind of meeting up, like, how you guys are going, like, what's good. And yeah, so we came to some shows, and then, yeah, eventually, I think after we did that tour with Boston Manor, he just called us up and, you know, just said, I'd like to work with you. But we've been kind of in so many conversations with other labels. I had to, like, by the end of the call, I was like, just to confirm, like, you're offering us a deal? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, right. Just, there's no, like, you know. So yeah, he's great. He's been super supportive. You know, he came down a bunch to meet all of the guys, and, you know, he called it the dating period afterwards, where it's just like, you need to make sure that everyone's all chill and, you know, everyone's in the right headspace. And so yeah, excellent. Really, really proud to be a part of those guys, and, you know, be on a roster as rich as theirs. So
yeah, absolutely. Boston Manor, of course, is on the label, as you mentioned. They're getting quite the variety. One of my all-time favorite bands, Poison the Well, just announced signing with them. I think Straight for the Path just signed with them. I mean, it's kind of crazy lineup. A lot of UK bands actually on there now as well. And for our St. Louis people, because that's kind of where we're based out of, we got a few St. Louis people on there. Josh Travis, and then we got Story of the Year as well. So
nice.
Great label. I recommend folks checking them out. So let's get into the record. Want to definitely give some attention and some love to the new record coming out, Vital Signs. It's going to be out February 28th. If you aren't already aware of these guys and haven't pre-ordered the album, what are you doing? Let's get on it. And so we've got 10 songs coming out on SHARPTONE, as we mentioned. We've already hit on a few of those songs that will be on there. So we're going to see Dare to Move on there. We're going to see Salt on there. We got to give a lot of love to Vacant, Vital Signs, and Fall Apart specifically. And so those are the three of the newer tracks that you guys have announced since your signing with SHARPTONE. From a fan perspective, once again, I think that this is kind of leaning into the creative direction that's very evident that you guys are going in. You know, I kind of mentioned earlier, a little bit of Failure, but, you know, Vacant, that's a track to me that stands out. That sounds like that could have been on the 2020 Inlet album by Hum. You could have just picked that right off of there. To me, Vital Signs sounds like a great dismal area, nothing, especially the production piece. You guys have got that atmosphere, those layers, a lot of room to breathe with the individual performances on the tracks. And then Fall Apart, again, kind of somewhat in various points. If you're just picking up the root guitar part, is very much Failure-esque. So really loving the 3 new tracks as well that you guys have dropped since the announcement.
Thank you so much.
It means a lot. Or it does.
I know that you guys have recorded all this too, like within a 2-week period. I know you kind of briefly touched on this as previously at the Ranch House Productions with Lewis Johns. Talk to me about Lewis Johns as a collaborator on this for you guys. How do you feel that he enhanced the writing or the creative or the putting together of this album for you?
I think that he's just done so many good like records in the past that he instantly understood the memo. Like we went in with our vision, it matched up with his vision, and all he did was essentially, like, we had demoed the shit out of these songs. He literally took those and just lifted and elevated those.
A lot of good refinement, just almost not simplifying songs, but he would kind of call some things out and being like, yeah, you're being too smart, don't need to do that. Actually, this is good as this, and don't overthink it. That was really cool, because it was a bit like, he gave sometimes like a less is more approach, and he was right for it in a lot of those circumstances, which was cool.
But don't get me wrong, he made us work hard, very hard. We had a short, it was 12 days?
Yeah.
It was like the middle of the summer. It was too fucking hot. There was like fans on left, right and center, just sweating.
We weren't signed, so it was our own money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was our own pocket. And so we kind of said, look, we really want to make a record with you. How much money is it going to cost? He's like, what's your budget? And he was just like, and we said, here's what we do. It's like, I'll give you these chunk of days, and these are the days I can give you, and we can do it. And we're like, yep, like, let's get it locked. He's made some great records, some of my favorite records, and his production is just like so cool. And yeah, so super happy. Again, like a nice other full circle moment that, he's on the fucking album sleeve as the producer of my band. That's it. Like,
well, the production and piece of it certainly is worth commending, and it did a fantastic job. But yeah, I feel like it kind of locked in atmospherically to like some of those iconic like 90s garbage albums in particular. Like that's something that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah.
Damn, man, it's been a while. Like that's something that drew me to that band back then. I'm a 90s kid, I'm almost 40, so garbage was, hot and heavy whenever I was a preteen, early teenager. So yeah, I absolutely love that.
Like a reference point that anyone gave, but I felt the same after the record was done. It reminded me a lot of like the garbage stuff, and like that's what I would listen to as a kid. Like my parents would put that on, but I think, I don't know if that was a subconscious thing or if that was intentional by anyone, but I felt the same kind of vibe for sure on from Garbage.
What's really interesting about that as well is I didn't even realize that you guys had made your own playlist of like inspirations. I just happened to stumble upon that, I don't know, here in the last few days, the Liberal with a Vibe playlist. And so, of course, there's some things on there I think people would expect, which I will put in the episode details, the link to the playlist in case anybody's curious to check this out. Failures on there, Smashing Pumpkins, Far, which is, I think, another band that is evident, maybe is an adjacent sound at various times for you guys. There might be some other things that are a little bit steps into it various directions. So, like, for example, we got Amusement Parks on Fire, Garbage we mentioned earlier, so that's what sparked this idea. Local H, that's kind of a niche Midwest band that I know a lot of people are fans of from where I'm at. Floor, The Cure, Boston Manor, we've talked about them earlier, but yeah, a little bit of variety on the playlist, so that was a nice surprise. But the one thing I gotta point out that I geeked out about was you actually had a track from the Spawn soundtrack, and as a teenager when that came out, dude, that was my life.
So Lou on that one.
Yeah.
He mentioned that. He'll love that. He'll get a kick out.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic.
He's got me hooked on that soundtrack recently. It's such a fucking workout. Like, you can, even when you're feeling like shit, just put that on and like you'll go. You just go.
Yeah, you don't have a choice with that one, for sure.
We'll be stoked you mentioned that.
Is there anything other interesting or fascinating that you might reveal behind the album making that folks might like to know?
I got one thing.
I've got one thing.
Okay.
It's going to be totally different to your thing.
Okay. This was fueled by Sam's anchovy addiction. I'm kidding.
Well, you spoiled it.
No.
Literally what I was going to say.
I'll let you tell it, but no, there is one part about it. I'll leave it at this. If you buy the physical edition, it's different to the digital. There's a track it has stuff that was cut out on the digital. I think it went from like almost 6 minutes down to 4 minutes. So, it's got like an extra like verse, it's got like an extra outro, and only on physicals on that one. So if anyone like listens to it and finds what track it is and stuff, hit us up. So that was quite fun. Big fan of that.
I love that.
Final head, and it just ended up making sense that we were gonna shorten it for, and they were like, well, let's just keep that song for the physical, like as in that length. So that was a really cool part. I'm really happy we did that. You know, it gives something, if you're buying the physical version, you get something a little extra that you won't be able to just stream. So
mine's a bit silly and less mature.
That's fine.
It was just listen out for the amount of tins of mackerel that I ate in the studio. Right? You said I wouldn't get it. You might smell it through the speakers. Yeah.
Well, I'll give it a chance. The sardines and hot sauce is a guilty pleasure of my own. So
you would eat
some saltines.
Hey man, it was nice, sweaty, hot studio. It looks like hot.
I bet that smells terrible. Yeah, I bet that smelled terrible. Yeah.
Hey, it made my pipe sound good. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, that is a benefit for sure. For sure.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well, I gotta say too, Chef's Kiss, I was glad to see on the track listing that Vacant does go into Vital Signs, because whenever you guys put together, I guess this last release with the 3 singles together, how Vacant goes into Vital Signs, that's just a Chef's Kiss moment for me. I love when tracks flow from one into another. So really looking forward to that experience on vinyl whenever I get my vinyl in as well. That's a super cool thing. Do you guys have a personal favorite track on the album that you think that you'd stand by as if somebody was like, okay, what's an example of what you do? You'd probably cue this one up first.
I think for me, it's Vital Signs. I like lyrically how it's kind of like closing on the themes that I'm singing about, as grief and, the journey of grief. And I just think that kind of gives, at the time it gave me some closure. And I think it allows me to kind of think about what's next musically, what we're going to do next. So
I love that.
Yeah, musically, if someone wanted to get a vibe for what we're about, Dare to Move is a good starting point. But a track that I love just because it's so different is a track called From the Hell, where if you listen to it, it starts off, really kind of reverby and almost just soundscapey, and then it kind of goes into a big riff. And it just doesn't really feel like a song. It just feels like I don't know. But Lou, that was a nice one where it came out really organically. It was quite early in the stages of writing the record where Lou was playing this riff over again. And then I kind of just did a totally different riff that just latched onto his thing that he was playing. And that was a really nice moment in that whole process of oh, this just works and let's not even overthink it. And then Sam, when we were recording, added this really cool vocal part that he hadn't before. And I was listening back to it and I was like, this is sick. That was a point in the studio for me. I was like, this is so good. So yeah, that track's called From the Hell, and I don't think we were going to be releasing that as a single. You can hear that when the album's out. So yeah,
I'm super excited to hear that now, hearing that story behind it. One thing I did want to mention about Dare to Move, especially Big Sam's drumming on that, it's a small thing, but the fills that are in that, him incorporating the hi-hat in there, I think it's kind of at the first measure of every time. Man, that just adds so much to that song, and that's just kind of indicative of what you guys do. It's just small little wrinkles here and there that stick with you. And I think you guys get the idea that hooks can be various things. It can be a drum fill. It can be this vocal part. It can be this guitar line here. And so you guys don't box yourselves in traditionally what people think about hooks and how they can relate to songs and kind of stick in people's ear.
Yeah. He's a great drummer, right?
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's a big highlight of what you guys do as well. But yeah, so the big takeaways, I think, from what I've heard with the new album is you guys, of course, have identified the direction that you want to go in, and you guys are all on lockstep, but there's little nuances and wrinkles to everybody's individual game, the individual performances. The space is managed well. That's like an art in and of itself on the production, and for you to hear that in a track, and just adds to the atmosphere that you guys are generating. And to just call this alternative music, I think is cutting you guys short. Just to call it shoegaze, I think is cutting you guys short. I think it's just an amalgamation of things. Can't encourage folks enough to check out the new music. And if they haven't already got on that pre-order, they need to get on it. But if you're getting to this and hearing this late, SHARPTONE Records is your spot, folks.
Thanks so much, man. That's really kind. I appreciate it.
Well, gentlemen, you guys have been so wonderful with your time, and I appreciate the conversation today. This has been a real treat. Man, I can't say enough good things. Everybody get out there, support these guys. We got Vital Signs coming out here at the end of February 28th. Buy some merch, support these guys, get out to see them. I'm hoping to see you guys stateside sooner rather than later.
We hope so. We just got a US agent, so hopefully in the next 12 months.
Well, count me in if you guys get anywhere near St. Louis. I'll be there front and center, and you guys can spit and slap on me, and I'll catch people stage diving. That's usually I can't get up there and jump off the stage like I used to. Got back problems, but I'll still spot people and bass for them. So keep people from landing on their heads. All right, guys. So what is the best way for folks to stay in touch with you social media wise, stay up to date with your announcements and everything that Oversized has going on?
I think it's just Instagram, really. And
I
we're
might
not really
do-
a TikTok band. So
No. I might turn Twitter into a shitpost cesspit soon.
Why not? It's a
Yeah,
post-apocalyptic landscape at this point.
yeah, I need to stop taking it so seriously. I might just start just memeing.
okay,
Uh,
Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah,
Right.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook's their platform. I don't know.
I agree.
Or,
Yeah.
You can
That's
always
cool,
use
like-
this Thrift Bakery on Instagram, which is Sammy's little bakery that he's got going on. Sammy's just opened a bakery in London, which I think,
yeah.
and
Well,
I
congrats, Sam.
can't on it.
Yes. Thanks. As if I needed more hard work.
Well, hopefully it's a labor of love for you. You know, I know that there's a lot that goes into opening a business in general, but bakery is kind of its own animal to deal with, food service industry and all that stuff.
Cheers, Brett. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys got any special shows or shout outs that you want to give to wrap things up?
So obviously those UK dates in March. It's probably the only time that we're going to play the album in full. So like,
Very good.
if you're able to get out to that in the UK, do. And then obviously we've got 2,000 Trees in summer, and we're kind of filling up our diary pretty quick for sort of the middle of the year. So keep an eye out.
Yeah, there's some stuff that we can't announce yet, but yeah, looking like it's going to be a busy year, which is cool. But yeah, playing some UK shows in March with our friends at Mercury, album front to back and other tracks, and that was a fun anecdote actually. It's like we're figuring out what album songs to play for our headline shows, and we're like, just play the album in fucking full. Why not? Who cares?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I love it, gents. You guys deserve all the love that's coming your way and all the success that's coming your way. It's nice to be following a band for years and seeing them just start to achieve things that you feel as a fan that they deserve. So much success and love to you guys coming up in the future.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
No problem at all. So, folks, be sure to tune in. This is episode 136. Our next episode, we're going to have Willem DeFriend, a St. Louis metalcore band that's starting to make some waves. So we'll be promoting their new album, Old Ghosts and New Garments. And then I will also be doing a guest spot on the Hardcore Dropout podcast. We're going to be hitting some history of hardcore. So looking forward to that conversation. My old friend Tyler Herrera over there at Hardcore Dropout. So we'll be promoting that on social media. You'll see that as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Oversized, thank you for your time. Love you, dudes.
Thanks, man. Much appreciated.
Hello, this is Barrett from the ATI podcast, here to talk about the MANIC Compression Group. The various podcasts that make up the MANIC Compression Group include ATI Podcast, Waxing On with R&J, Nod Narb's Closet from Ed Ozen, and It's Just Two Movies. The MANIC Compression Group is a voice for the voiceless, a platform for those dream chasers. The various creative arms of the MANIC Compression Group all have one goal in mind, and that is to bring a spotlight to underground artists and amazing artistic works. ATI Podcast, hosted by yours truly, focuses in on interviewing rising artists, content creators, and small businesses. Waxing On with R&J, hosted by brothers Ridge and Jake Jackson, gives love to physical media. It promotes purchasing physical media as a means to support artists, album reviews, details on production and audio quality on various formats, all with the end goal in mind to give some love to some amazing artists. Outside of the physical media love, you're going to get reviews on recent concert viewing experiences as well as local show calendars. Nod Narb's Closet focuses in on miniature painting, the D&D world, role-play games, as well as various niches in the hobbies of 40k Warhammer, Dungeons & Dragons, and tabletop RPGs. Led by Brandon Stewart of Ed Ozen, Nod Narb's Closet brings attention to the many talented people involved in the hobby. It's Just Two Movies, hosted by Danny King in a rotating guest panel, covers just that, two movies. One critically acclaimed or favorably viewed, and a secondary movie probably not good, but the hope is that it is so bad that it's entertaining. Sit back, enjoy some libations to the velvety tones of Danny King and guests with an injection of jocularity and improv comedy. The MANIC Compression Group can be found across all podcasting platforms, but the full experience can always be enjoyed on YouTube. We thank you all. Stay safe out there.